But on Monday, we had some sound from Matt Eberflus that just fried my brain, referring to the 2017-ish connection between Joe Flacco and Amari Cooper for 51 yards. And here's what he had to say.
It was, we were playing a zone in that one, and to be honest with you, that play should have been picked. So we got to do a good job of breaking on that, okay, and visioning on that. The ball's in the air long enough, or at least deflect it. But we'll improve our technique and fundamentals on that one, and we'll get after it next time.
Now, I have given Matt Eberflus the benefit of the doubt many times, more so than perhaps anybody on this radio station, when I consider that A, he's a bad liar, which is a good thing, and that leads to some of his answers in press conferences. And B, he has done a better job with the defense than the coordinator before him, despite them not hiring anyone. My only logical reason to think that they haven't is because people aren't available during the season, to which he has done a good job. He's also answered the call when it came to adjusting your defense for the talent and what you needed to do on the field because your plan wasn't working. You get credit. You also get credit because you've won the turnover battle several weeks this season recently. That has helped lead to your win streak. Well, back-to-back games. But hey, that's more than they had at that point during his entire tenure.
No doubt.
But here's where I take issue. You are not giving the other team any credit. And we've seen this before reflected in Luke Getsy's play calling, where they just flat out underestimate the athletes on the other side and think if they outthink them, that's going to somehow result in positive yardage when they say have Darnell Mooney, who's $175 blocking on an edge, or have Robert Tonyan, who should have been Darnell Mooney in that play, dropping what should have been a touchdown. Like, you're not using your personnel properly there. You think you've created the mismatch when in reality you lost your mismatch. And now you're asking your defense to get a fourth interception in order for you to win? I understand that the individual play might have dictated that, but that's when as a head coach, you are supposed to take a step back and say, what are the odds of my defense getting a fourth interception in this game? Is that a sustainable way to win games? The answer is no, it is not. I haven't even brought up the obvious, which was Justin Jones against the team's best offensive weapon, as if you didn't watch the game last week.
Hits principle.
You are the defensive head coach.
We play on the hits
just
principle.
let a 38-year-old quarterback throw for more yards in the fourth quarter than any other quarterback in this league this season with 212. You are a defensive head coach, and your offensive line general manager can't find a center. You have lost me. You have to ask yourself, what is the sustainability of my defense doing here? You should be proud of them for what they did. And it's another indictment on the Bears as a whole, because you want to go back to this whole defense wins championships principle. While neglecting the offense, relative to the percentage of how teams are built in the NFL now, today, in the year of our Lord 2023, your defense played practically perfect for how many games? And it still shows you that you need so much more on offense. Also, Darnell Mooney has lost himself a lot of money. See my argument after the Washington game when, Lawrence, you and I were talking and I got a lot of flack when he floated this extension junk out there previously. I rest my case.
That's Leila Rahimi, and I will second what you're saying, too, by also...
Here!
I will note that there's been a disconnect in tone and an apparent disconnect in understanding of the significance of that loss. Both in his immediate post-game comments and, I told the team, whatever that he came out and said, I just told him we got to concentrate in the moment and finish. And it's like, come on, man. Like apparently that locker room was bereft, absolutely dejected. And then even yesterday, some of the discussion still doesn't seem aware. Like, your season ended. Like, it isn't just about, defense played great and we got a bunch of sacks and everything's headed this way. It's like, okay, that's fine. But like you say, they didn't play well when it mattered. They collapsed when it mattered. They choked. This team has a choking problem. They've choked away 3 games like no team has ever done in the same season in the history of the NFL.
The chances are what, 0.03?
0.003.
They're tied with the NFL lead for the most 10-plus point fourth quarter leads, leading to losses this season.
And the odds of losing all 3 of those games, 0.003 chance. And somehow this team did it. This year's team is defined.
That's statistically 0.
Right. This team is defined by choking. And it's still, well, defense looks good, and get guys got to finish and concentrate on what you got to do. Come on, man. Like, you use the phrase read the room. It's like there's got to be somewhere in the building an understanding of the gravity of what's been allowed to happen.
That's your job as a manager. That's your job as the head coach, not the defensive coordinator.
That's why he's talking like a coordinator.
And that's my problem here.
Well, and you also add into the fact that if you were the head coach and you weren't the defensive coordinator, perhaps when you hear offensive players saying that they kind of lost their killer instinct and they were drifting, perhaps that's something that a head coach that is worried about head coaching instead of play calling on the defensive side might be able to pick up on and adjust.
Yeah, because you can manage during the game. And we've talked about the real concerning issue to me about how on the defensive side of the ball, players are allowed to listen and give feedback during the game, which should happen in the flow of every game, starting at even the middle school level, where you recognize tendencies and you want to adjust because that's what leads to wins.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, for some reason, that is not happening on the field where your offensive coordinator is physically present. He's not in the press box, which to me is also an issue. And that's not happening on the offensive side of the ball, according to certain reports. So DJ Moore is diplomatically trying to tell you things. And we all know the offense is deficient, but you're a defensive head coach and you have Justin Jones out there against David Njoku, which is just flat out embarrassing on 3rd and 15 because, again, you guys thought you could outsmart people by mismatches where you lost every time.
Just feels like you could just run your regular defense in that. So
It's designed for that situation.
That's really the whole point.
And again, with this rotation business, where they decide that your best players shouldn't be on the field for certain snaps because that's how you do things. Yes, somebody needs to step in. There needs to be oversight there. And if you were selling your team this whole playoff thing, which we knew they were, you couldn't find another message that would make more sense to not have this dejection because that's your job as a manager. Those were your not only options.